Okay, students. So here you can see today we are going to talk about the topic that is the transpiration. Okay. So first of all, we have to understand what is transpiration. Okay. And where does it occur? Okay. What is the site for the transpiration in the plants? What is the mechanism? What are the factors affecting the transpiration? Okay. And what is the significance of transpiration? And what are the adaptation adopted by the plant to survive in a condition where there is a dry condition, okay, and high transpiration. So let's start. So first of all, we have to understand what is transpiration, okay. So we know that transpiration, it is a process by which plant lose water, okay. And in what way the plants will lose water? It will lose the water in the form of water vapors, okay, from their, basically from their aerial parts, okay. And what is the aerial part? The leaf is the aerial plant, okay. So the definition of the transpiration is, it is the process by which the plant lose water in the form of water vapor, okay, from their aerial part that are primarily leaf, okay. So transpiration is essentially, we can also say that it's essentially the evaporation of water from the plant part, okay. So I hope the definition of transpiration is clear to you. So the next question that we are going to learn in this video is, where does the transpiration occur in the plant, okay. So there are three sites in the plant where the transpiration take place, okay. So the first site is stomata, okay. So I will write it here. The site for the transpiration, the first site is stomata, okay. This is the primary site, okay. The second site is the lenticel, okay. And the third site for the transpiration to occur in the plant is the cuticle, okay. So now let's talk about the stomata. So stomata is the primary site, okay. And these are we all know that stomata are the tiny pores on the leaf surface, okay. So these stomata, I will write it for you. These are the tiny pores. So where they are present? They are present in the leaf surface and they are controlled by the guard cells, okay. And around 90% of the transpiration occurring in the plant is due to the stomata, okay. Or in other words, we can say that stomatal transpiration rate accounts for 90% of the total transpiration rate, okay. The next side is the lenticel, okay. So what are lenticels? So lenticels, these are the small opening, okay. So where these small openings are present? These small openings are present in the bark and stem, okay, and branches, okay. So that water will evaporate in the form of vapors from the lenticels also, okay. However, the contribution, okay, of towards the total transpiration rate by the plant is very less, okay. So the lenticular, okay, it will contribute to the lesser extent, okay, to the total transpiration. The third one is the cuticle. So we all know what is cuticle. So cuticle is defined as it's a waxy layer, okay. Where it is present? The waxy layer is present on the leaf, okay. So since there is a wax coating over the leaf surface, there will be a minimal water loss, okay, through this cuticular transpiration, okay. So there is a minimal water loss, okay. So here students, we learned that the site for the transpiration is stomata, okay, lenticel and the cuticle. The stomata is the primary site where most of the transpiration is occurring, Okay, the 90% of total transpiration occurring in the plant is due to the stomatal transpiration. Okay, and the second is the lenticel. Okay, and these are the small opening in the bark and the stem and the branches, and it will contribute to the lesser transpiration rate. The third one is the cuticle. Cuticle is a waxy layer on the leaf surfaces, and since there is a waxy layer, there will be hurdle of passing the water in the form of water vapor from the leaves. So this will contribute to the minimal water loss. Okay, so you got my point. This is the stomatal transpiration is displaying the highest transpiration rate. Okay, so now let's talk about the mechanism of transpiration. So basically there are three mechanisms for the transpiration. Okay, I will write it for you. The first one is the water evaporation. Okay, evaporation. So water, in this type of transpiration, the water will evaporate from the mesophyll cell, okay, into the intercellular spaces within leaf. The second form of transpiration is, or the mechanism is through diffusion. Okay, so in the diffusion, the water vapor diffuses out through the stomata. Okay, why it will diffuse out from the stomata? Because there is high concentration of water inside the leaf. Okay, in comparison to the lower concentration that is present in the atmosphere. Okay, so we know that it will pass on the water vapor. It will just the water will just flow out in the form of vapor. Okay, from the higher concentration in the leaf to the lower concentration in the atmosphere. Okay, the third mechanism is the water potential gradient, and this is very important. Okay, water potential gradient. Okay, so the water potential gradient, in this mechanism, the transpiration, it will create a negative water potential gradient. Okay, so this will pull a water up from roots through xylem vessel. Okay, so you know what will happen, like suppose this is a plant, this is a stem, this is the root. Okay, now transpiration is occurring in the leaf. Okay, so what will happen, since the water is going out from the leaf, okay, in the form of the vapor through stomata, lenticel or the cuticle, so what will happen, a force will be created. Okay, a pull will be created. Now this leaf also need water, right, to stay healthy, so it will try to pull the water from stem. Okay, now stem in turn will try to pull the water from the roots. Okay, because in the soil there is soil moisture, right, so the water is there. So this kind of pulling, it will create a sort of pull. This pull is known as transpiration pull. Okay, and this will drive the uptake of water from the roots, okay, from the nearby soil. Okay, so the driving force of water the driving force of transpiration pull will force the water transport in the plant. Okay, so now let's come to the topic, that what are the factors that are affecting the transpiration. So the first factor is the temperature. Okay, so if there is high temperature, then there will be obviously high evaporation. Okay, so to cool down in the presence of a very high temperature, the water will the leaf will try to like due to the high temperature, the leaf will the water inside the leaf, it will just evaporate. Okay, so, okay, in the form of water vapor. So high temperature leads to the high evaporation, and high evaporation leads to high transpiration. Okay, because now it is clear to you that transpiration is just the evaporation of water in the form of vapor from the plant. So high temperature, high evaporation, high evaporation, high transpiration. Okay, so okay, this is the first factor. Now the second factor is the humidity. So if there is high humidity, then what will happen, there will be a decreased water vapor gradient. Okay, so this will reduce the transpiration. Okay, so that's why in the humid weather, okay, the transpiration rate is very less. okay, as compared to the dry arid area. Okay, why? Because in the high humidity area there is decreased water potential gradient, and this gradient only will pull, right, it will push to the transpiration. So if it is low, then there will be lesser transpiration. Okay student, you got my point. Now wind will also contribute to some extent to the transpiration. How? Because the wind, it will remove the water vapor. Okay, from where? From the leaf, from around the stomata. Okay, stomata, I already told you, these are the tiny pores on the leaf surface. So when there is no water, then eventually more water will come. So this will increase the rate of transpiration. Okay, next come is the light intensity. So students, light, it is very important for opening the stomata for the photosynthesis purpose, right? So now we know that if stomata is open, then the water will go out, right, from stomata in the form of vapor. So the light intensity, if there is high light, then this will lead to the stomatal opening. Okay, and this will lead to increased transpiration. Okay, then comes the stomatal aperture size. Okay, now size of the stomata opening also, it directly affect the rate of transpiration. So if there is a wide stomatal aperture opening, aperture is, hole. So if the aperture is big, then there is high transpiration. If the aperture is small, then there is lesser transpiration. Okay, so the guard cell, okay, regulate the stomatal aperture. So the transpiration, rate of transpiration is also dependent upon the stomatal aperture. And the last but not the least, the very important is the water availability. So now if there is soil, the plant where it is growing, the soil is dry, less water is available, okay, for the uptake. And so the plant will try to adopt certain strategy to reduce the transpiration. Okay, so now let's move on to the topic, the significance of the transpiration. Okay, so for the transpiration, the first significance is in the water transport. So the transpirational pull, we have talked about the transpiration pull, right? So this pull is essential for the upward movement of water and minerals from the root to the other plant part. Okay, so I already explained it to you, but those who are joining later, I will just again draw it for you. Suppose this is a plant, okay, stem, this is a leaf, okay, and this is the root. So what will happen? The leaf is doing transpiration, right? So for the better transpiration, it will need water also, right? Because if there is some water, it will go out. Then there is a space for more water. So the leaf will draw the water from the stem. Now stem will have less water. So it also need to survive, right? So it will draw the water from the roots. Okay. So the transpirational pull, and this is done by the pull, okay, by that is occurring due to the process of transpiration. So this transpiration pull, it will lead to the water transport in the plant. Okay, in addition to water transport, there is the transport of minerals also, right? Because they are dissolved in water, right? So this is the first significance of transpiration, that it will help in the upward movement of water and minerals from the roots to the other plant part. The second important significance of the transpiration is the cooling effect. So evaporation has a cooling effect. It will prevent the leaves from overheating. Okay. The third is the nutrient transport. So uh, if you know this, how this water transport is occurring due to the transpiration, then similar is the mechanism for the nutrient transport. So it will help in the transport of mineral absorbed by the root throughout the plant. However, there is a negative aspect of the transpiration. So what is the negative aspect? That if there is very high transpiration rate and the soil condition is dry, then the plant eventually will suffer due to the dehydration, that is the lesser water availability, and it will wilt. And if it is pronounced for a long time, then eventually the plant will die. Okay, so this is the negative aspect of the photosynthesis. Now let's talk about the adaptation. Okay, so the plants are very smart, right? So plants are sessile. Okay, so do you know what is the meaning of sessile? Sessile means they are fixed onto a particular position. They cannot move. Okay, suppose you are standing in a sun, it's very hot there, so you will try to move, right, from one place to another. You will go to the shade. Okay, but plant cannot do so, right, because they are fixed in the soil through their roots, right? So if the plant is in the condition where the transpiration is very high, it will try to adopt itself. So how it will adopt? It will try to have the small leaf. Okay, so smaller the leaf, lesser will be the surface area for the water loss. Okay, the second adaptation is the thick cuticle. So the thick cuticle, I already told you that it will lead to the minimum water loss. So the leaf will develop more thick cuticle, okay, under water scarcity conditions. Okay, then third is the sunken stomata. So the humid microenvironment around the stomata is created. Okay, this will reduce the water loss. So the fourth mechanism is the CAM photosynthesis. The plant eventually, there are some plants that will adopt the CAM photosynthetic mechanism, because we know that the plant need to prepare their own food. The plants are autotrophic. So how they are preparing their own food? They are preparing using the process of photosynthesis. So this will require the sunlight, right? But in the CAM photosynthesis mechanism, what will happen? The stomata of the plant, okay, they are open during the night time, okay, and closed during the day. So usually in general, most of the plant, what will happen, as the light is there, right? So light is much needed for the photosynthesis. So during the light hour, the stomata of the plants are open, okay, and it will be closed in the night. However, in the CAM photosynthesis, the stomata are open in the night and they are closed during the day. So if they are closed, then there will be lesser transpiration through the stomata. So this is also one of the mechanism. And the last mechanism is the leaf orientation. So some leaf, they will try to orient themselves, okay, away from the plant, so that they will be exposed to sunlight in a minimal way, okay, and this will reduce the heat and the transpiration. Okay, thank you very much.